guys, welcome back. It's Josh with the Financial Advisor Car Guy. As you can see, you're looking at me through my steering wheel. I'm driving my wife's Mach-E today, and from a mounting standpoint for the phone, I don't really have a good spot in this car. So I decided to prop you up on my dash, and I can see you, you can see me. I think this is working out really nice. I also don't have to take my eyes off the road. So bear with me if the steering wheel turns in front of the camera or something like that. I apologize in advance, but let's dive in. Today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the value of collectible cars. And when I say collectible, I don't necessarily mean modern day collectible cars. I'm talking about classics. Let's talk about 50s, 60s, 70s cars. Even some 80s cars anymore are starting to get to the point where they're becoming pretty collectible. They're not easy to find. There's maybe not as many left in good condition as there once was. And so I guess from the standpoint of value, you could look at this a lot of different ways. There are 60s vehicles that have appreciated a lot more than others. Think of the late 60s or very early 70s Cudas. Think of maybe the Shelby Mustangs, right? Those are going to have appreciated a lot more than regular Mustangs. There's a number of great collectible cars from the 60s, but let's talk about the cars that were produced for the masses. Let's talk about the Ford Mustang or the Chevy Camaro. Both of those cars have grown in popularity. Both of those cars have grown in value. And really, to be fair, you can't really own one for very little money anymore. All the good deals seem to have been gone. And even, talking about the Mustangs, for example, it used to once upon a time be that the fastbacks were the ones that were worth money. Not too long ago, the convertibles became pretty valuable. Today, even coupes are climbing in value. They're getting harder to find in good condition. There's very few, unmolested ones left out there. Most of them have been rat rotted or, customized in one way or another. Guilty, I've done it too. I've had several Mustangs, and just about every one of them has been modified to some extent. And so all that to say, really the truth of the matter is Mustangs are one example of a car that, they're not going backwards in value. You can have a very modestly built, very standard stock, whatever you want to call it, running and driving vehicle that, maybe it's worth, for round number's sake, let's say a running and driving 65 Mustang baseline, $8,000, $7,500, $8,000 for a car that's running, driving. You can get it from A to B. Maybe it's a project, but it's a running and driving project. I'd say $7,500 to $8,000 is probably a baseline for one of those. For a coupe. Once you get into the convertibles, maybe $12,000 or something like that for a very baseline non-GT car. This is just a running and driving Mustang convertible. That might even be low. It might be more than that. And a fastback in running and driving project condition is north of $20,000. So it once upon a time was that the fastbacks were the desirable ones. That's what people wanted. That's what people were after. And people either settled and got a convertible or a coupe, or they didn't settle and just kept waiting and watching the market climb and climb and climb. And I'll be frank, that's kind of where I was when I bought my convertible about 12 years ago. I had been watching the fastback market, and 12 years ago, I was in my 20s. I had a very young child. I had no disposable income to speak of where I could just go buy a random car, especially one that was of value. So I shopped around and found my convertible on eBay, got a screaming deal on it, and then just scrimped and saved and built the car over a matter of about 7-8 years, something like that. Obviously, it's still a work in progress, but the bulk of the work was done over the first 7 or 8 years. It was not a 6-month restoration. It wasn't a 1-year restoration. I didn't buy a $5,000 car and then in a very short window turn around and dump $20,000 into it. So it was a labor of love. It was a slow going process, and that's fine and dandy, but the value of these cars aren't going backwards. And so I think back to Model A's, Model T's. You can occasionally find them on sale, for sale, whether it's private party or at an antique dealer or whatever it is. Antique car dealer occasionally have these things, and they sell anywhere from $5 or $6 grand to maybe 15 or 20 depending on the condition. But there's a Model A right now locally to me that is for sale, and I want to say they're asking like $8,500, and it runs and drives. It's in really good condition. It was mildly restored, and I mean you can't beat it for a classic car like that. I mean, if that's what you want, you can get into one for kind of a deal. But again, if you're looking at a muscle car or some sort of classic car that has maybe completely bottomed out on the depreciation curve and is climbing back up, you've got your pick. I mean, you can pretty much buy any car from the 50s or 60s, and it's not going to go down in value. It may not go up, but it's not going to go down. There's definitely a plateau and kind of a baseline or a bottom line for the value of some of these cars. And I would tell you that just about every car from the 60s or 70s and earlier really have hit that. And you can buy one, drive it, enjoy it, whatever you do to it, and in all likelihood, you can probably get most, if not all of your money back, and then some, depending on the case. So, again, I kind of use the Mustang as our example because that's what I'm most familiar with. Like I said, I've had several of them. But yeah, I mean, if I look on Facebook Marketplace or on Craigslist right now and found a local Mustang, I mean, there's going to be non-running project cars for 10 grand. There's also going to be running and driving ones for 10 grand. It just depends on what your goal is with it. And if it's a project anyway, maybe you don't care if it runs and drives, or maybe it's got a straight 6 and you want a V8. So you're going to yank the motor anyway. So those are all things you want to consider. But my point is, if 10,000 is the baseline, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can buy one, drive it for a year or 2 or 3 and not do a thing to it other than maybe an oil change or fresh tires or something. And you'll have no problem making your money back and then some. If it's got rare options, or if it's a highly spec'd out car, or, like I said, a GT package or a Shelby or whatever it is, right? You're obviously going to see those appreciate much more rapidly or much more steadily over time. Whereas the base models, I feel like there's just a growing demand. Really, I think that's what it comes down to, is supply and demand. And on a car that was built in the 60s, they're not making more of them. And if popularity grows, if people that are young today are deciding, shoot, I really would like to build a 60s Mustang, they've waited too long and they're already priced out of fastbacks and convertibles, but coupes are still out there to be found. So, buying a $10,000 coupe, putting another $10,000 worth of, updates or modifications or whatever it is in there, now you're into this thing 20 grand. Could you sell it for 20? Yeah, I would suggest you probably could. I mean, yeah, I would say that you could. It's going to depend a lot on what you've done to the car. I mean, some people don't care about a new stereo. Some people don't care about, whatever it is. But if you're doing meaningful upgrades and updates, and, you're putting new upholstery in, or you're painting it, or you're rebuilding the engine, or putting disc brakes, or, there's a number of things you can do that really will make a difference, that will impact the value of the car and the usability of the car long term. Well, then I'd suggest you're in pretty good shape from an investment standpoint. So the long and short of it is, I'm just going to kind of close with this. The long and short of it is, classic cars from the 70s and earlier really aren't depreciating. In fact, if anything, they've plateaued. They are kind of bottomed out. I think that over time, you're going to continue to see even just common cars of the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s will start to climb in value more so than they have. And I mean, if you're looking for a project car that's fun to drive, fun to work on, maybe easy to work on, right? Cars in the 60s were a lot easier to work on than they are today. I would suggest hopping on Craigslist, looking at Facebook Marketplace. You know, there are some deals out there. I think there's still some hidden gems, but make sure you're looking for makes and models that aren't necessarily super mainstream. Mustangs, Camaros, Cudas, you know, a lot of those cars are very, very, I mean, cool. They're cool cars. People want to own them. People want to have them. And those are the cars that are going to demand more money. But if you can find something under the radar, so here's a quick example. Like I said, I'm going to close with this. 1962 Ford Fairlane. I picked up that car for $3,500. It was super fun, super amazing. I had a ball with it. And, you know, I think I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I didn't put too much money in that car. And I sold it and made money on it. You know, I got to enjoy it. I had a fun time, a great time modifying it and building it the way I wanted it, and really just enjoyed the heck out of that car. Was able to then sell it for a profit, and it also looked awesome. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, it's kind of a silly example, but it is one. And I bought it for not a lot, put not a lot of money into it, enjoyed it, and then sold it for a profit. And I don't see how that's a losing situation for anybody. You know, again, old cars, especially if you can find this Fairlane, for example, had a really nicely rebuilt 260 in it, and which is a small V8, but it was a great engine. It had been rebuilt. It was dressed up. It looked really nice. But the car itself was, you know, nothing super duper desirable. And so I was able to get it for a great steal and then customize it a little more and then make money on it. So, you know, those kind of things are out there, but yeah, I just don't think they're going to go backwards in value. So it's a pretty safe investment, pretty safe bet. And that's where I'm going to close out today. So what do you think? Are there cars out there that are from the 50s, 60s, 70s that are depreciating that I'm completely forgetting about? Comment down below, let me know. Like, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you know when I post new content. New videos every Friday, and then in between, look for YouTube Shorts. I've built the page now. We've got 500 viewers, 500 and something viewers. So that's huge. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're gonna keep going though. We're hoping to, I'm hoping to hit 1,000 before long, and then who knows from there. So thanks so much, you guys. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. May every investment you make be a good one. Till next time.